Hello fellow readers and gamers, I am back with my continuing adventure in Everlasting Summer. So Shurik continues to be missing, despite supposedly a lot of us looking for him. I've done damn near everything but actually look for him. But now Electronic has found his boot, Shurik's boot that is, on the way to an old camp that supposedly is haunted. And now I think we're gonna go there. Let's see what happens. Olga Dmitrievna, I think I'll take a walk before bed. Just not a long one. Okay. When I reached the square, I understood that hanging around in the forest or some other strange place may not be that scary, but doing so in the dark? I didn't want to return to Olga Dmitrievna's cabin, but I had to find a flashlight. For instance, there was one in the infirmary. I was glad I didn't spend my whole time there reading the fashion magazine. The flashlight was found quickly, and in a few minutes I was again standing at the square, pulling myself together. I just had to make the final decision before I entered the forest. Moving past the pioneers' cabins, down the forest path towards the abandoned camp, I set forth. Electronic told me that the old building was built immediately after the war. It looked like a kindergarten, or like a barracks, I expected, and definitely could hold fewer pioneers than today's camp. It had been abandoned for about 20 years. It was now totally dark. The forest looked totally different at night. Mysterious shadows were hiding behind the trees, strange rustlings and the cries of night birds coming from everywhere, branches treacherously snapping under my feet. The full moon was shining, so I decided to save the battery in the flashlight. I'm sure I'll need it sometime soon. The further I moved, the more unpleasant thoughts came into my head. I wasn't afraid of the dark at all. I didn't believe in ghosts and other mystical crap, but at the same time, during the last few days I'd encountered so many incomprehensible phenomena that against my own will, I started to read between the lines of the simplest things. Obviously, I felt exceptionally uneasy in the forest at night. Everywhere I looked, every shadow, every tree or bush looked like a weird creature, escaping straight from horror movies or from Stephen King novels. A branch seemed to be someone's hand, eager to grab your shoulder. A fallen log, someone's dead body, someone who failed to get out of the forest. In every gully, I saw a bottomless abyss. If I had found myself in this forest under any other circumstances, without all these buses and pioneer camps, of course I would still feel uncomfortable, but then I would be able to explain everything with logic, and be afraid of nothing, except for owls and mice, of course. 'Cause I'm a man's man, I'm afraid of owls and mice. But at the moment, there were more than enough reasons to fear. Despite all this, I reached the old camp without any adventures. In a little glade, surrounded by trees, stood a house resembling a kindergarten. Paint peeled off the walls. Almost all the windows were broken. Broken masonry here and there, holes in the roof that looked like those made by a bombing. In front of the building was a little garden, surrounded by a rusty fence. Apparently, once it was a playground with a merry-go-round, swings, slides, and other Soviet attractions. But time is cruel. All of them were broken and mutilated by corrosion. The grass was so tall that it almost came up to my waist. The moon looked out from behind the clouds and illuminated the old camp. It seemed like everything came back to life. Windows shone with new glass and walls looked like they'd been painted with fresh paint. I heard playful laughter, saw translucent children joyfully running and frolicking in the yard. A strict camp leader on the threshold, holding a basket with ripe apples in her hands. The old cleaning lady taking a nap in the shade. It sent chills down my spine. Of course, my imagination was just playing tricks, but the old camp itself was so similar to all the post-apocalyptic pictures I had seen that these visions were no surprise. I stood undecided for a long time before I dared to go further. After all, I'm here to find Shurik. Though I still don't get what he might be doing here. If he even is here. A boot somewhere nearby doesn't mean anything. However, if he was not eaten by wolves, for some reason it seemed like there were no wolves in this forest, this must be the only place where he might be hiding. I carefully crossed the yard, pushing the tall grass apart and trying not to bump into a jagged piece of metal. But I stopped in a doorway, hesitating. An impenetrable heavy darkness stared back at me from inside. Even the bright moonlight could not illuminate any object, or even highlight a silhouette. My head was filled up with different thoughts that all said that it's better for me to go and to not go any further and run away quickly. But I pulled myself together, turned on the flashlight, and stepped over the threshold. Inside, the building looked like a typical kindergarten. I still remembered my childhood days, and so everything here looked very familiar. Sleeping room with lines of beds standing close to each other, a large playroom, toilets, a dining room, and utility rooms. Signs of the past children's joy were seen everywhere. From time to time, the flashlight drew my attention to a decaying doll, or a plastic toy car, or a punctured rubber ball, or a broken rank of tin soldiers. There was a book on a table, faded with age. I flipped through a few pages. It was a story I had read long time ago, back in my childhood. Something about the war. Enemies destroyed the kindergarten and all of its kids hid in a little basement together with a bunch of adults, while bombs were exploding up on the surface. I don't remember the end of the story, but as far as I remember, nobody died. Looking at the illustrations, all the emotions, fear, sadness, sympathy for the poor children, and the sense of hopelessness which I had experienced while reading this book came over me. It's strange that under exactly these conditions, right here and now, that I found this book. Probably there is somebody who manages this ongoing story, who writes the scenario for this absurd play, who sews costumes for the local pioneers, and creates sets like this abandoned camp. Getting all meta, break that fourth wall. To tell the truth, he is very talented. Attention is paid to even the most minor of details. A little bit of pat yourself on the back, break the fourth wall. Although this place was abandoned long time ago, everything here seemed to be untouched. Of course, time didn't spare this camp. In so many years, it had often been visited by the locals. A perfect place for young people, just hitting puberty. They could drink alcohol, indulge in amorous pleasures, or simply burn everything down just for fun. Electronic mentioned this place is full of legends. Legends of ghosts and devils living here. Take, for example, the story about the camp leader who committed suicide. In my world, nobody would believe that this could stop somebody, but in this reality, anything is possible. Certainly, the fear didn't disappear, but I decided that since I'd come here, I was going to carry on to the end. The building was small, so it wasn't difficult to search it completely, but I didn't find any sign of Shurik. Maybe I should just call out to him. But on the other hand, maybe that's not such a good idea. Frustrated, I sat on a bench in the lobby and sighed. "Ghosts, where are you?" I asked the camp, and all of a sudden, I noticed a strange depression in the corner. A small trap door. An adult would barely be able to squeeze through it. And it seemed to me that it had been recently opened as the dust was cleared around it. And so here's the part where I need to be scared. So, Shurik went somewhere. What might be lurking beneath the trap door? A basement? What would he be doing there? I pulled open the hatch and pointed the flashlight into the darkness. There was a ladder going down a couple of meters, ending in a concrete floor. There was a low, narrow corridor disappearing in the darkness. I hesitated for a long time. On the one hand, I had absolutely no desire to go down there, but on the other hand, if Shurik really was there, I swore loudly and began to descend. Downstairs, it was so dark that even the flashlight didn't help much. A low ceiling, wires extending along the walls, broken lamps clad in iron bars. I've all seen it all somewhere. I slowly started to move deeper into the dungeon. The path went down, and after a few dozen meters ended at a stairway with high steps. Soon, I found myself in front of a massive metal door. There was a sign painted on it. I looked closely and realized that it was a biohazard sign. No wonder. If the old camp was built after the war and it lasted until the 70s, so it's an ordinary bomb shelter. There's nothing to be afraid of. However, those thoughts made me even more scared. I made a decision and opened the door, which immediately shut with a sharp sound as soon as I stepped through the doorway. I shuddered strongly, my hands began to tremble, and my vision dimmed. I regained consciousness after a few seconds, and only then did I realize that apparently a strong spring was attached to the door. I found myself in quite a spacious room. In the beam of the flashlight I could see a bunk bed, some cabinets along the walls, and several devices of unknown purpose located in the far corner. It seems that this bomb shelter has never been used. Nobody ever came here. The beds were made, which is strange in itself. I carefully looked around the room several times. The cabinets were filled with gas masks, chemical protective suits, dry rations, various domestic odds and ends. The devices which I at first could determine the purpose of, or could not determine the purpose of, were gauges of radiation, air pressure, and temperature. In short, it was a typical bomb shelter. I'd never been in such a place before, but it was how I'd imagined it. The only thing that remained unexplored was the door at the other end of the room. I pulled the handle, but the door remained closed. If someone recently came down here, and he wasn't found in this room, then it would be logical to assume that he is behind this door. I called out in a whisper, "Shurik." No reply. Maybe he locked himself out? But why? It was unclear what I should do next. Perhaps it would be smarter to come back tomorrow with help, but for some reason I had a feeling that behind this door I would find answers that can't wait to be found. I walked across the room and took a crowbar from the corner. I wedged it under the bottom of the door and tried to rip it from its hinges. Oddly enough, after a while, I did just that. Fortunately, it wasn't as massive as the previous door. The door gave out and slammed onto the floor. I took a deep breath and pointed the flashlight down the passage. A corridor vanished in the darkness, the same as the one on which brought me here. The walls were closing in. My head almost touched the ceiling, but I could not make out the end of the corridor. I walked carefully, looking at the ground. This was the reason that I did not fall into the pit. The hole was about 1.5 meters in diameter, and there was earth at the bottom of it instead of concrete. It seems that the hole was caused by an explosion. It wasn't too deep. I could easily climb out later. After I jumped into the hole, I found myself in something that resembled an old mine. The walls and the ceiling were reinforced with wooden beams. The tunnel was so long that my flashlight was insufficient. A few minutes later, I found myself at the crossroads. It's too dangerous to go any further. I could get lost. I decided that it would be a good idea to somehow mark the place from which I would begin my journey into the labyrinth, so I picked up a stone and made quite a big notch on the wall. So, go left or go right? To the left, everything in your box, to the... Okay, I don't know. We'll go to the left. It seems that there is another fork in the road. I'm gonna get lost. Let's go left again. I came to some kind of miner's camp. Picks and helmets everywhere. A rusty wagon stood in the corner. All the items were so old, they dated from the beginning of the 20th century rather than the middle. So, this really is a mine. Which means I could wander around here for ages without finding a way out. But I sensed that exit was somewhere nearby and went further. It seems that there's another fork in the road. If I keep going left, I can always come back, right? I don't know. Let's go left. Now I've kind of gone in and out. Oh, another fork. But if I go left, then that's a box. I've created a square, and now I'm back at where I was, right? Let's see what happens. Yeah, I've just come back. Okay, we'll go right this time. I'm totally lost now. Seems there's another fork in the road. Oh, God. Wow, guys, how long are we going to be doing this? Oh, my God. I don't know. Go right. Now go left. Crap, go left. Oh, finally. I walked out of the tunnel into a rather large hall with a high ceiling. Though it could hardly be called a hall, they must have used it to mine something here. Coal, probably, or maybe gold. The walls had been cut by pickaxes or pneumatic drills. This place was pitch black, so my only salvation was the flashlight. If it breaks, it's unlikely that I'll ever get out of here. In its ray of light, I suddenly spotted a piece of red cloth. A pioneer's neckerchief. Shurik was obviously here somewhere. Shurik! Shurik! Only my echo answered me. But where could he have gone? There was no other way out. Maybe there are other places in these tunnels that I didn't see, so I should search further. Oh my God. Let's go right. Oh. Go left. No, go right. Go left. Merrick, go left. Go left. Go left. Go left. Go left. I'm just... Go right then. I don't know if this just makes you do this randomly or whether it's like one of those things where you take... Ugh. Oh. Wow, I think I'm just going to edit like all of this crap out because I can't imagine this is fun for any of you. And I got to be honest, it's not much fun for me right now. Oh, for God's sakes, whatever. Oh my God. Okay, I'm going to end this video here because I feel like I'm going to be at this forever and there's no point in wasting all of your time. So I'm trapped in the mine and I'll give it a couple of tries to see whether I can figure it out on my own. And then if I can't figure it out, I guess Google is going to help me. So that's the end of this video. I'm sorry that I waited so long. If you're watching this and I only clicked a couple times, it's because I've edited out a whole whack load of me trying to find my way through this stupid mine. So that's the end of this video. We'll see if next time I actually find something in this mine. Maybe I'll actually find Shirk. We'll see what happens. I hope you'll join me. Click on like, the big thumbs up if you like the video. Give it a subscribe to my channel so you can see whether I ever escape from this damn mine before my flashlight runs out. I hope to see you in my next video. Until then, bye-bye for now.